Hey, this is John Griffith. Today I wanted to do a quick little video screencast on how to use this thing called Blockbox. So what Blockbox is it's a little contrib thing that we added upstream to OpenStack Cinder that lets you actually deploy a Cinder service, a Cinder block storage service, using Docker Compose, using containers. So the idea behind this is it'll give you a standalone Cinder service that you can deploy and launch really easily. Usually just takes a few minutes, and you can use that and go ahead and use it for local storage or plugging it into something else in the future, say Kubernetes or something like that, or Docker using Docker Volume plugin. So it's fairly new. There's a lot of work going on around it still, a lot of improvements that are actually in review right now and in the pipeline, and then a lot of things that'll show up here hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But this is just kind of a first shot and a sneak peek at what we've got. So I've got a system here that has some of my prereqs installed already. So the prereqs are, if you want to use LVM, you need to have a volume group created that is called Cinder volumes. So if you look here, I've got Cinder volumes created and ready to go. I've actually got some hard disk space that I can use. I'm actually using physical disks. The blog that I've written actually talks about how to set up a loopback device and use that in the things that you need to install. The other thing that you're going to need is, of course, Docker and Docker Compose. So if you need some help getting those and figuring that out, you can also check out the blog and get the information from there. From there, it's just a matter of pulling down the OpenStack Cinder repo. So we'll do that here. And then if you go into Cinder, there's a contrib directory now. And inside of there is this thing called Blockbox that we're talking about. There's a lot of stuff in here in terms of your config files and stuff like that, all the usual Cinder setup stuff that you need to have. That's all set up in here with defaults, so you can just use it as it is. So there's really only two things that you really need to pay a lot of attention to when you first try this, right, just to test it out. The first is the make file here. So if you look inside this make file, what we're doing here is we're actually going out to the OpenStack Loki project and using that to build Docker images for Cinder. There's other options, there's Cola and there's things like that. Certainly you can tweak this thing around and use those, that's absolutely fine. All the different options that are out there are good options, they just each have their different strengths and weaknesses. I chose Loki and I've been working with Loki mostly because it, by default, it builds everything from source, which I like. And I do a lot of things, with this model in terms of development and testing and things like that. The other thing that's kind of nice on the Loki side is they're really small images because they are from source. They do a really good job of doing things to make sure that they keep the images small. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to build these images first. You'll notice we have a base image, which is just a Cinder image. That's going to just pull all of the current Cinder source, depending on whether you specify master or a stable branch or even a review that's out in Garrett. You can use any of those, and it will go ahead and it will pull those and do the install inside of that image and give you all of the Cinder bits there. You can also select what platform you want to do this on. You can do it on Debian, Ubuntu, or CentOS. So there's a lot of flexibility there. So we've got that base image. And that gives us everything we need. And then if we want to do LVM inside of a container, we need to do a few extra things. We need to add some things like iSCSI target and LVM and all that sort of thing. So that's what that extra thing does. Right now we're pulling that from a local Docker file that we have that's special, but that actually has been pushed upstream into Loki. And the changes will merge back into Cinder here, hopefully in the next few days. The review is out and it's ready to go, but for now that's what we have. And then finally there's this dev box. I use this to do a lot of testing and stuff like that on Cinder locally. rather than using a virtual machine or a an OpenStack Cloud or DevStack or something like that, right? I can just get a standalone Cinder thing running and do some things like generating a cinder.conf file or checking requirements or something like that. So anyway, it's just another way I do things. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kick off a make all on that. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes or so. It kind of depends on your network bandwidth and what kind of machine you have. So we'll kick that off. Oops. We'll do a make all, and that'll take off. We'll give that a few minutes, and then we'll come back and pick up from there. Okay, so we're back and we've got our images built. So now if we do a Docker images, take a look and you can see we've got Cinder development environment, Cinder LVM, and then our Cinder base image here. So one thing I should point out about this is currently I highly recommend you actually build these images and keep a local copy of them. Don't go and just pull them from Docker Hub. So currently in Loki, we're not actually pushing continuous integration images up into Docker Hub. We will be soon, so we're working on it. But for right now, your best bet is probably to go ahead and build these at least the one time. So anyway, with that, now the next step is we've got this Docker compose file. So if we take a look at the compose file, what we're doing is first we're going to go ahead and we're using a private network, a Docker network that we're going to create here. Just makes it a little more portable for us. So we've got a RabbitMQ container, a MySQL container, and then our API scheduler and volume, all the usual Cinder things that you need. What you'll notice right here is if you're not using LVM, you don't need to use this Cinder LVM image. You can just use the base Cinder image that you already have and just pass in a cinder.conf file that actually points to your back end. So that changes things and makes it a little bit simpler. But LVM is probably the hardest case, so if we can make that work easy, then we're in good shape. We have this depends on Cinder scheduler. If you were in Boston and you saw the keynote demo that we did that didn't work, this is why. I didn't have a depends on Cinder scheduler and then a restart on failure. So that created some problems. What was happening was there was a race and things were coming up and the volume service was trying to attach to the database, but the database wasn't initialized and ready to go, and so things would fail. And then the scheduler was kind of a cascading thing. But anyway, I think we've got a lot of that stuff worked out now, so hopefully things are good. Let's just get to the point here, and the next step is to do a Docker compose up. And this will go ahead and launch all of those containers and link them together and initialize the services, launch the services inside of the containers, and get everything ready for you. So we'll give this just a few seconds here. So as it's going through here, you'll notice a few things like right here, there's an error in Cinder volume because the MySQL database isn't initialized yet, right? So it'll come back and it'll try it again here in a second. And there we go. This time it picked it up and it looks like things are ready to go. Okay, so we can see here it looks like everything's up and running and we should be good to go. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open a new window here. We're going to come over here, and one of the things that when you're using thin provisioning in Cinder, it's going to do is it's going to create a logical volume for the thin pool. So we'll check that and make sure that that's there, ready to go. So to do that, we just do a sudo lvs, and there's our Cinder volumes pool. So that's good. So obviously, we had our Cinder volumes group there and everything, so that was ready to go. At this point, we're pretty much set. You can go ahead and interact with this using curl and things like that. Or, you might want to use Cinder client. In our case, that's what we're going to use. I don't have standalone or no auth support inside of OpenStack client right now, so we can't use OpenStack client, but we can use the Cinder client. And what we're going to do is, so we're going to install Cinder Client, and then we're also going to make sure we add in the brick extension that allows us to do local attach and local detach. So that's really cool because it gives you all of the connector stuff and everything else that you need. So you've got something that's fully functional. So inside of the blockbox directory, you'll notice there is a Cinder RC file. So if you look in this RC file, you'll see you've got auth type is no auth, Cinder endpoint, project ID. You can set project ID and username to whatever you want. The endpoint, you're going to want to make sure you use the actual host that you're running this on. So in my case, what I did is I just have a blockbox RC file. And that actually has the correct IP for me. But other than that, everything's the same, right? So what I'll do is I will source that blockbox RC file. And then now what I should be able to do is just run Cinder like I normally would on any OpenStack deployment. So we do a Cinder list. And you'll see currently there's nothing there. So we'll do a Cinder create name foo. And we get the usual thing we would expect to see. You do a Cinder list again, and it's available. So let's just make sure it's actually on this machine, and there's no trickery, and there it is. So there's our UUID, specifying that that's the volume. So the next thing is, if you have this volume and you actually want to attach it to this node, right? We're going to do a sudo, and we're doing sudo because we're going to call iSCSI ADM and do a bunch of internal commands on the node here that we need sudo for. So, and since we're doing that, we want to use -e so that we make sure we pass in our environment variables from our blockbox RC file. And then we'll do a cinder local attach, and then we'll just give it this volume ID. And you can see there we did an attach, and we'll just go ahead and verify that it's there. And there it is. It's our OpenStack volume. And now if we do a Cinder list, you notice it's marked as in use. So at this point, you have your Cinder volume. You've gone out, you've created it, you've attached it. Now you would just do a makefs and a mount, and you can use it and persist your data there. The thing that's cool about this is then you can also you can blow away those containers, you can shut things down, and then relaunch it later and everything will come back. So your database and your volume groups, your logical volumes, they're all going to persist. So you're good to go there. So of course you can also do a detach. And then again, if you do a Cinder list, and it's available. And then just to verify there's no funny business going on, we'll go ahead and look again, and you'll notice that IQN is now gone. So we've removed the target, we've logged out and removed the target, everything's gone, so we're good. And then of course, finally, we can delete, oops, we can delete the volume. We'll do a Cinder list, and then just to confirm again, LVO. So that's cool. We now have an easy way to deploy Cinder on your machine. You can set it up in just a few minutes, and then you can turn around, you can use that and get all the goodness of Cinder. So, you know, we have over 80 backends that are supported in Cinder right now, and they'll all work with this method. You can also, if you start playing around and you do the LVM method here, you can easily just add another backend. If you look here, we've got this add volume service compose. So this just launches another container, again, built off of that base. And then what we do is, in this case, it's solid fire. I just pass in a new cinder.conf that points to that backend, launches this container, and that's what it talks to, and then it automatically checks in with the RabbitMQ server that we already set up and everything just works. So you can scale this up and down all you want. So that's where things are at. That's what we've got. There's a lot of work going on to improve this and make it better, and I think it's I think it's moving along pretty well. There should be a lot of improvements here in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully it's something you're interested in and you find it useful. If you get a chance to check it out, please do. And I'm, of course, always looking for feedback and open to ideas and suggestions. So thanks a lot. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.